Hello and welcome to Viewers on News. I am Jawad Tehami. The International Conference on the Peaceful Settlement of Palestine has commenced at the United Nations with the Palestinian Prime Minister speaking at the very start of this three-day moot, saying, let me quote, all states have responsibility to end the war in Gaza. Starvation and human suffering must be brought to an end in Gaza. Path to peace starts with the recognition of a state of Palestine. There is no viable alternative to peaceful resolution of Palestine, unquote. This three-day conference is, of course, co-chaired by Saudi Arabia and France, and it is expected that over 123 countries as well as organizations are going to be in attendance at this particular mood. Pakistan has also joined the global push for a Palestinian statehood with the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Ishaq saying, let me quote, Pakistan has a clear foreign policy for decades that the two-state solution is the only answer to the Palestinian problem, unquote. We've also seen in another major development, French President Emmanuel Macron has announced that France will formally recognize a Palestinian state. This decision by France has been strongly condemned by the United States of America. All these developments are for discussion in today's show. For that, we are joined in the studio by Mr. Syed Kashif Ali, is Middle East expert. Mr. Ali, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on this show. Also in the studio, we are also being joined by Mr. Almas Naqvi, his foreign affairs expert. Mr. Naqvi, thank you very much for your time also, for being with us on the show. Later on in the show, we'll be joined by another participant. I'll be introducing him as he joins in. In fact, we are now, as we are speaking, joined on the video link by Mr. Osama Nazzal. He's expert Palestinian affairs. Mr. Osama Nazzal, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. Both of you participants, if you allow me, let me begin with Mr. Osama Nazzal. Mr. Osama Nazzal, this particular international conference at the United Nations for the peaceful settlement of Palestinian issue, at this particular point in time when we see the talks for a ceasefire and the hostage deal haven't given us anything substantial as far as the outcome of those talks are concerned. In view of that particular phenomenon, which has just gone into sort of a failure, this particular conference, what's the significance as per your understanding of it, and what sort of outcomes can you expect at this particular point in time?
This conference is important despite the many difficulties and hardships that the Palestinian people are going through at this moment of the time. But it is important because we know that the Israeli occupation regime has been trying to subside the Palestinian cause and to show the world that the Palestinian cause is forgotten even by the Arabs and the Muslims. And he began to promote the Israeli ideology and the Israeli vision for the Middle East, talking about economics, talking about business and normalization, as if the cause of Palestine no longer exists. Now, this conference proves once and again that the Palestinian cause is still on the international agenda and very strongly present on the international agenda. And there is no way for a peaceful solution in the Middle East without settling the Palestinian cause on the basis of recognizing the rights of the Palestinian people to sovereignty, independence, and statehood. We understand as Palestinians that what is important now is to provide the protection for the Palestinian people and to stop the Israeli genocide and allow the humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip and to stop the Israeli colonial settlements in the West Bank and to protect Jerusalem from the Israeli policy of Judaization. But despite all that, we pay a lot of attention to this international conference.
Okay, so I just want to understand as how the scenario would be changed around. There's certain stats that around 142 countries out of 193 member states of the United Nations are willing to or have indicated at some point in time plans to recognize Palestine as a state. We have also seen this particular recognition that's been announced on the part of the French President, Mr. Emmanuel Macron, and he has also said that this would be formalized in September, most probably that particular upcoming United Nations General Assembly session. We have also seen similar sort of stance when we talk about Norway, Spain, and Ireland. Just most recently, they have also expressed their intention of recognizing the Palestinian state. Here is a supposition: if all 142 countries out of these 193 member states of the United Nations recognize a separate Palestinian state, how the things are going to be different on the ground as far as that very aggression, the brutality, which has been unprecedented, that's been unleashed by Israel since 7th of October 2023.
Yeah, the recognition of the international community and of the international governments of Palestine as a state is very important, because once again, it puts back the cause of Palestine on the international political map, and at the same time, it is an indicator of the failure of the ideology of the Zionist movement, which says that Palestine is a land without a people, for a people without a land. Now, the whole world is recognizing that the people of Palestine are a people who have been existent on their indigenous land since history, and based on that, they are entitled to their right of statehood. But we focus on this point that you raised. We don't want the outcomes of this conference to be just like the resolutions taken by the United Nations in relation to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And no resolution was implemented at all, and Israel grabbed all of the land for the colonial settlements. We hope that the states that are participating in this conference, and mainly France, are going to respect the outcome of their conference and follow their decisions with concrete steps on the ground, like imposing sanctions on Israel and pressing it to recognize the right of the people of Palestine to their independent state and justice.
Right, Mr. Osama Nazzal, I'll come back to you with a number of other as to be understood from your side. Mr. Kashif, when we talk about this particular conference as it is happening as we speak, we've also seen Palestinian Prime Minister addressing to this one a short while ago. The Turkish Foreign Minister has also addressed this particular moot. What are your expectations from this? This is going to be carried on for 3 days. 123 international organizations, countries participating. It comes right after when last week France has announced that it is going to recognize the Palestinian state, which is going to be formalized in September. And France happens to be the first G7 countries to do so, despite that condemnation and criticism that has come from the US.
I think this conference is going to be held at a very important juncture. Especially in a time when non-stop genocide of innocent Palestinians is going on in Gaza. More than 60,000 people have been massacred by Israel. And there is no doubt Israel has, an Israeli Prime Minister has clearly said that he wants to expel the entire population. So basically, a genocide and ethnic cleansing plan is basically being carried out by Israel.
Mr. Kashif, please go ahead where you left from.
Yes. So what I was saying is that right now, there is the most extreme right government in Israel. And what they are saying is that there is no possibility of any kind of a Palestinian state, because it would be akin to helping the extremism, and what they call it is terrorism. So Israel is basically just sabotaging the entire diplomatic processes and the peace agreements and the Oslo Accords and whatever they themselves have committed. So at this juncture of time, it's very important that international community and especially the Muslim countries must clearly convey a message to Israel that that Palestinians do have their right to exist, to have a free homeland. And without the solution of the Palestinian issue, Israel cannot live peacefully.
What is the two-state solution? What does it entail?
According to two-state solutions, there are two states to be created on the land of ancient land of Palestine, and those two states will coexist side by side. So Israel has committed to this as per Oslo Accords, and it is a signatory to an international accord.
So what I understand from your take is, had there been any other government in Israel at the point in time as we are speaking, so they would have agreed to this. It's because this is very this particular regime, which is led by Netanyahu, it's just because of his extreme policies that they are not willing to go about it.
Actually, if you go to the recent past, recent 2 or 3 decades, the Israeli left has been decimated. And right now, there are either extreme right parties or parties belonging to the right. So Israeli left, actually the Oslo Accord was basically signed by the Israeli left. The prime minister that signed that accord, and later he was assassinated by the right-wing extremists. So right now, the extreme right of the political spectrum of the Israelis, they have just decimated the entire process. And they don't recognize the Oslo Accord, and they don't recognize the Palestine state.
Saeed, Kashif, I want your understanding. If let's suppose 193 members, with the exception of 2, of course, the US and Israel, 191 member countries of the United Nations recognize a separate Palestinian state, right? Would it guarantee that the kind of brutality that has been unleashed since 7th of October, that is going to end with that recognition of the Palestinian state? We have seen the United Nations General Assembly voting overwhelmingly in the support of an immediate and unconditional ceasefire over there. But that showed that the international conscience feels the gravity of the situation. So supposedly, if all these countries go in recognizing the Palestinian state, will it guarantee that this brutality is going to be ended?
I think as far as the diplomatic front is concerned, it's very important. It will have an impact. It will basically add pressure to the Israeli government to stop its brutality, its genocide, its ethnic cleansing plan. It will have an impact as far as the diplomatic front is concerned. But as far as the situation on ground is concerned, I don't think so. Because right now, if you see during the past year and a half or 2 years, almost 5 times the United States has used its veto power in favor of Israel. So as long as the United States keeps supporting Israel, I don't think so that Israel is going to stop what is its atrocities and what it is committing in basically Gaza and also in the West Bank, because it's not the Gaza. There is also an ethnic cleansing plan going on in West Bank as well, and people are being forced out of their homes, and their Palestinian homes are being destroyed, and everything is being happening in broad daylight. So at diplomatic front, I think it carries an importance because it will convey a very strong message of international community, as well as the strong countries like Saudi Arabia and Pakistan and other, with which Israel wants normalization process. So Israel will get a message that as long as he doesn't resolve this issue, he's not going to have normalization with important countries like Kingdom of Saudi Arabia or other major countries.
Mr. Naqvi, what's your understanding? We'll look at this announcement by the French president. regarding recognition of a Palestinian state. How do you look at that? Is it going to be symbolic, or do you think there is going to be any substantial, concrete difference on the ground?
Yeah, of course, it will have certain impact, at least the symbolic one initially. But I think before the recognition, first we should have to focus at least on the two things. First, the ceasefire, and the second, humanitarian aid provision. At this moment, the atrocities are continuous, and the people, the suffering, the people of Gaza is continue, and the second most issue is becoming a catastrophe in Gaza, prevention of the humanitarian aid. So at least international community must push the pressure on the Israeli regime to reach to the ceasefire first, and then the humanitarian aid. The third issue, the recognition of the state, is the third one. I think definitely it will create an impact and suggest the way to the international community how the future course of the Middle East security lies. But yes, of course, it will create impact, and definitely certain countries will try to sabotage this process as well. So we should have to be cognizant about this thing.
What countries would try to sabotage what
For
process?
example, United States has rejected and condemned the French president's announcement about the
Why the
recognition
US has done so?
So the reason behind the Jewish lobby, in United States, the Jewish lobby is so much strong, and some of the people think that they are the fundamental stimuli or the drivers behind the U.S. policy towards Middle East. So in my understanding, that lobby influence the policy towards.
So as far as the US, its own policy towards this particular issue is concerned, what about the Abraham Accords?
So Abrahamic Accord,
Let me quote the excerpt from it. We, the undersigned, recognize the importance of maintaining and strengthening peace in the Middle East and around the world based on mutual understanding and coexistence, as well as respect for human dignity, freedom, including religious freedom. By looking at this particular, on mutual understanding and coexistence, what does that mean? By looking at this, we understand that the US has a clear policy.
So not more than rhetoric, in my understanding.
It's an accord which they want the Muslim countries to be the part of, right? In that, the US recognizes the phenomenon of coexistence. So as per the Abraham Accords, if it is recognizing this phenomenon of coexistence, my question to you is, why would it condemn French recognition of Palestinian state?
So look, the rhetoric is different than the actions and the policies. So
this is an agreement, this is a contract, this is a signed contract when we talk about the Abraham Accord. Isn't it more than mere rhetoric?
But look the word coexistence with the Muslim world. They are not talking about, they are not specific to the two-state solution.
Okay, let me take this particular point to Mr. Osama Nazzal. Mr. Osama Nazzal, why do you think the US had condemned this particular France's decision of recognizing a Palestinian state when in the Abraham Accord it is cognizant of the fact and talks about coexistence, giving us an understanding that it also wants two different states, an Israeli state and a Palestinian state? Am I correct in understanding when it talks about coexistence in Abraham Accords?
Yeah, because we don't want to forget that Israel is the colonial project of the West, and this colonial project is fully and without any limitation is supported today by the American administration, by the United States and the UK. And so the United States policy is just consistent with the Zionist vision of the region. As we see today, Israel is very much worried about this step by France because Israel is trying to have the position of all of Europe, just as the position of the American administration, as it's not thinking of achieving peace by the creation of the Palestinian state. It is dismantling the nearby states, and we see how it is occupying parts of Lebanon, how it is bombarding Lebanon from time to time. It is occupying large parts now of southern Syria and bombarding Syria all the time. So Israel doesn't want to have not only a Palestinian, but any strong Arab state. So the Zionist vision is that to have all of Palestine for the Jewish people, for the settlers, and to empty Palestine of its indigenous people, the Palestinians. And that's why it has been murdering tens of thousands and injuring hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in Gaza for about 2 years and refusing to stop its genocide. Now, this is a clear message really to the Arab countries that signed Abraham Accord, and they accepted to normalize relations with Israel, that Israel doesn't want peace with the Palestinians, does not recognize the right of the Palestinians, and the United States is just supporting Israel. And I think these Arab states were deceived, bluffed, and trapped when they listened to the Americans and got into Abraham Accord without any guarantee that the United States is going to recognize the right of the Palestinian people to independence, sovereignty, and statehood.
Okay, so when this Abraham Accord talks about the efforts to promote interfaith and intercultural dialogue to advance a culture of peace among the three Abrahamic religions and all humanity, and also saying that it believes that the best way to address challenges is through cooperation and dialogue, and the developing friendly relations among states advances the interests of the lasting peace in the Middle East and around the world. What does this particularly mean?
Do you think that it is possible to have a dialogue with people who believe that killing children and starving a whole nation to death is just like a normal thing? Is it possible to have a dialogue with people with this mentality, with this mindset? It's impossible to talk with people like Ben Gvir and Smotrich and Netanyahu and the likes of them in Israel. So Abraham Accord and all these initiatives and all these agreements are aimed at one thing, which is to allow Israel to occupy the economic sphere of the Arab and Islamic world under the guise of peace and dialogue, and to liquidate the cause of Palestine and wipe out all the rights of the Palestinian people. So it is difficult for the Americans and the Israelis to speak openly that this is the purpose of such accords. So they try to embellish them by saying it is for peace, it's for intercultural dialogue. Uh, those who slay children every day and those who set fire to people in Gaza, I don't think that it is plausible and it's reasonable to talk about peace with them.
So how do you think that, what's the way forward as far as this international conference is happening? When we talk about the two-state solution, how that particular end is going to be achieved? If there can't be any dialogue with the people, you're also mentioning the entire world, in fact, knows there is relentlessly bombarded innocent people for over 21 months now.
Yeah. Now, the way forward is very clear. Now, the Arab and Muslim world and all those who support justice know that the United States administration is the first supporter of the Israeli genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza and all of the occupied territories. The United States is standing against France and all the countries who participate in the New York conference in order to confirm the importance of the creation of the state of Palestine. And so the way forward is that the Arab people, all the Muslims, and those who support peace must work hand in hand, must work together to boycott Israel, to impose economic sanctions on Israel, because Israel does not understand the language of dialogue, does not understand the language of morality and the human value. It understands one language, which is money. If the world and peace-loving people hit the Israelis' pockets, I think Israel will change of its policy. Otherwise, it will never.
Right, Mr. Kashif, when you talk about your understanding as to what could be the reason as far as the US administration is concerned, we know for a fact not only during this particular US administration of President Donald Trump, this particular ethnic cleansing and the genocide was underway under the when there was Joe Biden's administration in the US. Do you think is there any sort of a difference as far as Israel's approach towards this entire equation is concerned? Any difference when its approach was under Joe Biden's administration as to what it is now under President Trump's administration, or is it the pretty same?
I think US support for Israel is unconditional, and this support is basically due to the strong presence of a very strong Jewish lobby in Washington and in the entire US, and that basically that strong lobby has influence across political spectrum. They have strong influence in media, they have strong influence in their economic institution, and they have basically done a lot of legislation that forces every administration to basically adopt a pro-Israel policy. And secondly, in the past, the US basically politicians have seen that those who try to adopt an anti-Israel policy,
that
they were punished.
That unconditional support towards Israel from the US,
military
no matter whatever the administration is over
absolutely.
there.
Yes.
Talking about the Abraham Accords, the word of coexistence, promoting interfaith harmony and intercultural dialogue to advance a culture of peace among the three Abrahamic religions in the region and all humanity. So we do understand that the US believes in coexistence. What do we understand of this particular word of coexistence? Two-state solution, two different cultures and faiths living side by side. And if that is true by the language of this very Abrahamic Accord, do we understand that the condemnation by the US administration regarding France's decision of recognizing a Palestinian state is uncalled for and unjustified?
I think we need to understand the nature of the current US president, which is basically labeled as a very pro-Israel and an unpredictable president. And if you just have a look at what he has done in his previous administration, he basically accepted the sovereignty of Israel over Golan Heights that were captured in 1967. He basically accepted Israel sovereignty over Jerusalem, which was basically an international city, right? He opted out of JCPOA that was done with Iran, and he did it unilaterally. So Mr. Trump, who believes in unilateralism, and he doesn't believe in in international accords or diplomacy. So
no, this is an accord they have signed themselves.
Yeah,
this is what they want.
And JCPOA was also an accord that they had signed, and they opted out. And during the last 2 years, they have basically bypassed diplomacy. They have trampled international law. So it's very dangerous precedent that the United States has set during the last 2 years.
This is an accord the US has signed itself with a number of Muslim countries in the Middle East. It wants others to follow the suit as well.
Yes.
The word coexistence, does it only entail the connotation of coexistence of Muslims and Arabs, of those Arab and Muslim states with the state of Israel, or do we understand that this coexistence also takes a stock of the existence of the Palestinian people?
I think by the actions of Trump and Netanyahu, it's quite clear that by coexistence means enslaving Palestinians, subjugating Palestinians, depriving them of their basic right of freedom, dignity, honor. And Trump says that peace through strength. So what they believe is that they should first use kinetic means, that is military means. They should occupy and enslave nations, and then they just impose basically orders, the order that US has envisioned for the entire Middle East, or for that matter what Israel believes, or Israel basically see itself as hegemon of the entire Middle East, where it's the most it is the strongest military power of the region. It has the, I mean, free hand. It has it has a right, every right to basically capture Syria, Lebanon. It has the right to basically attack every country of the region and to force that country to Israel will. So this is what they believe in coexistence, that there should be no powerful country in the region that has strong military that can basically challenge the Israel and American order. And the other thing that Israel believes, according to their strategic Minister for Strategic Affairs, Ron Dermer, he says that America is going to leave the region. So it should basically allow Israel to step into the shoes of America. And basically with the help of their Arab countries, Israel and the Arab countries should basically establish a new order in the Middle East. And that order unfortunately is based on their power, based on the military might of Israel that it has been demonstrating for the last 2 years. So I don't think so that they basically abide by their own accords or by their own words that they have signed it. So international law or accords or basically agreements, they don't mean anything to neither to Trump, to US administration, current US administration that is the most pro-Israel, because more than 6 of high position basically in the administration they belong to the Zionist lobby.
Right. Mr. Naqvi, the first and foremost thing that you talked about was reaching a ceasefire, and at this particular critical juncture all the efforts and the endeavors should be actually focused on getting a ceasefire as immediately as possible. We've seen a number of votes happening at the United Nations Security Council regarding that. Of course, vetoed by the one P5 member, the United States of America. We've also seen that very overwhelming vote happening at the United Nations General Assembly. Those preliminary injunctions from the International Court of Justice regarding the genocidal acts, asking the US, the Israeli authorities to not go for making the genocidal acts. We've also seen there have been a number of strides taking place in the recent past. There was an earlier ceasefire reached that was breached by Israel unilaterally in March. Negotiations in the recent past have been going on with the mediators, also very hopeful and positive at a certain point in time, including Egypt, the US and Qatar. But there hasn't been any substantial outcome of the recently held negotiations as far as reaching a ceasefire is concerned. Now, this particular international conference, as it is happening, what measures could be taken? As you already mentioned, that this should be the first and the foremost focus to achieve the ceasefire. How that could be a possibility?
Yes, of course, it could be possible in a sense that if the international community is reached to the consensus to put pressure on Israel, but you know, there is no consensus in international level. There are some certain countries, they are supporting still Israeli regime and their perspective and ideas. Yes, French intervention is a different path in recent developments. So now I'm looking, the world is bit divided. The Muslim world, obviously we can see that they will push for the ceasefire, and even some European countries will also join this move, but I don't foresee that United States will exert the pressure to the level that change the behavior of the Netanyahu.
Now, we have also seen Mr. President Donald Trump saying that the fight in Gaza against Hamas would have to be different. That is what he is telling to Prime Minister Netanyahu. So what does that mean, that the fight in Gaza against Hamas would have to be different?
I don't think so. The objective of the both Israeli regime and the Trump is clear, to occupy the land. They are not interested in any sort of solution. They are moving toward the occupation of the land. They are finding it's a great opportunity to grab entire land and including and exclude the population. So this is the point. I don't see, again, I don't foresee that the Trump administration will support the idea of the two-state solution announced by the French president and the rest of the international community.
Do you think it is going to have a serious impact as far as the bilateral relationship between France and the US is concerned after this condemnation by the US and France's decision of recognizing a Palestinian state?
I don't think so. They have their own nature of bilateral relations. This is a position to work on an international issue. And of course, a French perspective is different than the Trump.
But if it's not going to have an impact on the bilateral relation, why would Britain and Canada not go and follow the suit as France has done?
Their own national interests interpreted like this. They are not interested to recognize or follow the French president. I think this is their own understanding toward the issue.
So as far as the broader foreign policy spectrum is concerned of these two nations, do they have any sort of an understanding, or do we understand that it's because of the US unflinching and unconditional support towards Israel and going about recognizing a separate Palestinian state might have serious repercussions as far as their relations with the US are concerned?
Look, still I think the US and Trump administrations want to see the Israel as a hegemonic power in the region. And rest of the powers, they have their own national interest that not somehow coincide with the Trump administration. So I'm not foreseeing any sort of consensus on this issue.
Right. Mr. Kashif, is a ceasefire in the sight or in near future? Is there a possibility?
I think right now...
Apparently so, the recently held negotiations
I was pointing out to that important point, because right now, during for the last month and a half, very serious negotiations are going on in Doha, Qatar. And there is a possibility that a 60-day ceasefire could be reached by the parties.
But there was a very narrow window as far as that 60-day initial ceasefire is concerned.
Yeah.
The US was quite clearly pressurizing the Palestinian resistance group Hamas to accept that offer.
Yes, of course. They have always, pressured the Palestinians. And on the other hand, they have provided Israel with military, with diplomatic and political support.
And President Trump had said that it is highly likely that that particular deal could be reached within a week. It's over much beyond than that week.
Yes, it is possible.
So what is the possibility with this ceasefire?
It's quite likely that in the coming days we will see a ceasefire, 60 days ceasefire, during which Hamas would release 10 more hostages, and in return Israel will cease hostilities, and during that 60-day period parties will engage for a broader end to the war. Israel, right now Israel hasn't basically announced the complete cessation of hostilities or end of the war. Netanyahu says that still he has to achieve the war goals.
So how many captives are left in the hands of Hamas right now?
I think there are more than 50 captives right now, and out of which 30 are alive. 30 are alive, and there are some deceased with with their dead bodies in the hand of Hamas.
So do you think there is going to be any sort of a guarantee for this 60-day ceasefire initially?
I think looking at the past, we can't say anything with certainty because Trump is the most unpredictable president of the history of the United States.
Mr. Syed, Kashif, Middle East expert, thank you very much for being with us on the show. Mr. Almas, Haider, Naqvi, foreign affairs expert, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.